For a century, an empire born from the sands of Arabia had swept across the known world. It was an unstoppable juggernaut, its armies conquering vast territories with breathtaking speed and ferocity. From the Indus River to the Atlantic, its dominion grew. This relentless expansion had already consumed Persia, North Africa, and the ancient Visigothic kingdom of Spain. Now its gaze turned northward, threatening the very heartland of the Franks. Paris, Vienna, Rome itself seemed within reach of this formidable power. But one man stood in their path: Charles Martel, the de facto ruler of the Franks. He made a fateful decision to halt this seemingly inevitable advance, to draw a line in the sand. His strategy was audacious, born of deep understanding of both his enemy and his own forces. Martel chose his ground carefully, planting his infantry on high ground, a dense, unyielding forest at their backs. Then he waited. For 3 agonizing days, the two armies faced each other, a silent testament to the immense stakes involved. On October 10th, 732, near the city of Tours, the clash finally came. This single battle would become a pivotal moment, not just for the Franks, but for the entire future of Europe. It was a day that would echo through 1,000 years of history. The Umayyad Caliphate represented an empire of unprecedented scale and power. Its vast dominion stretched from the Indus River in the east to the shores of the Atlantic in the west. This was a civilization at its zenith, driven by faith and military prowess. Their military machine was a marvel of its age, characterized by rapid cavalry movements that could cover 40 miles in a single day. They employed psychological warfare as effectively as their swords, often demoralizing foes before the first arrow flew. Their reputation preceded them, sowing fear and submission. Just 2 decades prior, they had swiftly conquered Visigothic Spain, shattering its ancient kingdom. The Pyrenees Mountains, once a formidable natural barrier, were now seen as merely a minor inconvenience, a stepping stone for northward expansion. The rich lands of Gaul beckoned. The Umayyad commanders, emboldened by their unbroken string of victories, held a profound underestimation of the Frankish resistance. They saw the Franks as fragmented barbarians, easily overcome. They failed to grasp the true strength of their leadership and the resilience of their people. This overconfidence would prove to be a fatal flaw. They believed their momentum was irreversible, their destiny manifest. But destiny sometimes has other plans. Charles Martel was not a king, but the mayor of the palace, a title that belied his true authority. He was the undisputed power behind the Merovingian throne, a pragmatic and ruthless leader who had unified the fractious Frankish kingdoms. His rule was forged in fire and iron. Martel's raw battlefield credibility was unquestionable, earned through countless campaigns against internal rivals and external threats. He was a warrior statesman, intimately familiar with the brutal realities of combat. His men trusted him implicitly, for he had always led them to victory. Recognizing the unique threat posed by the Umayyad cavalry, Martel had painstakingly created Western Europe's first true standing infantry force. These were not mere levies, but professional soldiers, trained and equipped for a specific purpose. They were the backbone of his defense. These Frankish infantrymen were tough, chain-mailed farmers, hardened by a life of labor and constant warfare. They were trained to fight as a cohesive unit, wielding 9-foot spears with deadly precision. Their discipline and resolve would be tested to their absolute limits. Martel's shrewd tactic was to lure the Umayyads uphill into dense, unfamiliar terrain. He understood that the open plains favored the swift cavalry, but the broken ground and forests would negate their advantage. He chose the battlefield, not his enemy. The trap was set. A solid wall of heavy infantry, shields interlocked, their long spears braced against the anticipated charge of the Umayyad horsemen. It was a gamble, but one born of strategic genius. al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, the Umayyad governor of Al-Andalus, harbored a burning ambition to conquer the rich Frankish lands. He had already led successful raids into Aquitaine, and now sought to extend the Caliphate's reach deep into Europe. His forces were formidable. His army, estimated at around 20,000 horsemen, was a swift and devastating force. They swept through the countryside, plundering towns and proclaiming jihad, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Their advance seemed unstoppable, their purpose clear. Refugee stories, tales of burning churches and desecrated lands, spread like wildfire ahead of the Umayyad advance. These accounts served as powerful propaganda for the Franks, galvanizing their resolve and uniting disparate factions under Martel's banner. This was a fight for survival. Charles, ever the strategist, positioned his forces on high ground between the rivers Vienne and Claine. This gave him a strong defensive position, forcing the enemy to attack uphill and limiting their flanking maneuvers. He controlled the terrain. Martel employed another cunning tactic. He stripped the valleys of fodder and supplies, denying the Umayyad horses sustenance. This weakened the enemy's most potent weapon, slowly eroding their strength and mobility. It was a war of attrition before the battle even began. al-Rahman faced a terrible dilemma. His horses were weakening, his men growing restless, and his pride forbade retreat. He had to attack despite the unfavorable conditions. The decision was made, and the stage was set for a monumental confrontation. For 6 grueling days, the two armies faced each other in a tense standoff. The air crackled with anticipation, punctuated by skirmishes and probing attacks. It was a war of nerves, each side testing the other's resolve. Frankish scouts, intimately familiar with the local terrain, picked off Umayyad foragers and isolated patrols. These small victories boosted Frankish morale and further depleted the enemy's already strained resources. Every small advantage counted. Umayyad cavalry attempts to break the Frankish lines were met by an unyielding spear wall. The Frankish infantry, disciplined and resolute, held their ground, demonstrating their training and courage. They would not be easily broken. Charles Martel, a true leader, walked the lines of his men, offering personal addresses and words of encouragement. He knew the importance of morale, of connecting with each soldier. His presence was a source of strength and inspiration. Martel's motivational speech resonated deeply with his men. He reminded them they were fighting for their homes, their families, and their ancient laws. This was not just a battle for territory, but for their very way of life. They were fighting for Europe. As dawn broke on October 10th, 732, the Umayyad charge finally came. A massive cavalry wedge, a thunderous wave of horsemen, drums beating, banners flying, surged uphill towards the Frankish lines. It was a terrifying spectacle of power and fury. But the Frankish line held. Spears bent under the immense impact, but they did not break. The disciplined infantry stood firm, their shields interlocked, creating an impenetrable barrier. A chaotic melee erupted, a maelstrom of steel and flesh. Amidst the swirling chaos, a critical blow was struck. al-Rahman al-Ghafiqi, the Umayyad commander, was cut down. His death sent a ripple of confusion and despair through his ranks, shattering their morale and disrupting their command structure. The tide began to turn. By nightfall, the Umayyad camp was abandoned. The Frankish scouts, cautiously approaching, found only empty tents and discarded supplies. Panic had set in, and the once invincible army had melted away into the darkness, signifying a profound and unexpected defeat. The cost to the Umayyad forces was devastating. Several thousand of their elite cavalry, the very spearhead of their expansion, lay dead on the battlefield. It was a catastrophic loss of experienced warriors and leadership. In stark contrast, Frankish losses were minimal, numbering only a few hundred footmen. Their defensive strategy had proven incredibly effective, preserving their strength while inflicting maximum damage on the enemy. It was a tactical masterpiece. The Caliphate had lost its best general and, more importantly, its aura of invincibility. The myth of their unstoppable advance was shattered. This defeat marked a psychological turning point, signaling that their expansion was not limitless. Charles Martel, now truly the Hammer, consolidated his gains. He systematically pushed Muslim garrisons back across the Pyrenees, securing the Frankish borders and reclaiming lost territories. His victory was not just defensive, but offensive. Beyond the immediate military success, Martel's victory laid crucial administrative groundwork. It strengthened the Frankish kingdom, paving the way for the future Carolingian Empire, and eventually, the Holy Roman Empire. A new order was beginning to emerge. Europe gained precious time, a vital breathing space. For centuries to come, it would avoid another existential land invasion from the south, allowing its unique cultural and political development to flourish unimpeded. The continent was given a chance to define itself. The Battle of Poitiers has long been debated by historians. Was it truly a hinge of fate, or merely a large-scale raid that was repelled? The question of its ultimate significance remains a subject of intense academic discussion. However, a critical counter-argument stands firm. Tours was the first time the Umayyad advance into Western Europe was decisively stopped. Previous encounters had been raids or minor skirmishes, but this was a full-scale invasion halted in its tracks. It was a definitive check. Following this defeat, the Caliphate strategically rerouted its expansionist energies. Their focus shifted eastward, towards Byzantium and Central Asia, rather than continuing their push into Western Europe. The path of conquest was altered. Western Europe gained crucial breathing space, a period of relative stability and security. This allowed for the organic development of its unique institutions, free from the immediate threat of foreign conquest. Its identity began to solidify. This era saw the emergence of feudalism, agricultural innovations that transformed the landscape, and the nascent foundations of universities and cathedrals. These were the building blocks of medieval European civilization, allowed to grow in relative peace. Consider an alternate history, a different map of Europe without the victory at Tours. The cultural, linguistic, and religious landscape of the continent could have been irrevocably altered. The world we know might never have come to be. The Battle of Tours stands as a monumental event, a testament to courage, strategy, and the sheer will to survive. It is the reason for much of Europe's cultural and linguistic landscape, a defining moment that shaped its destiny. Charles Martel earned his fearsome moniker, the Hammer, not just through victory, but by refusing to yield in the face of overwhelming odds. He stood firm when others might have faltered, protecting a continent from an uncertain future. An invasion was stopped, a civilization was saved, and Europe survived. From that pivotal day in 732, 1,000 years of future unfolded. A future that would have been dramatically different had Martel and his Franks not held the line. If this story reshaped how you see history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring forgotten battles and hidden stories back to life. And ring that bell, because history's next turning point might surprise you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next adventure.